Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We have breaking news. We've just learned the Justice Department will seek the death penalty for the convicted shooter in the racially motivated mass shooting at a Buffalo, New York supermarket. The 20-year-old has already been sentenced to life without parole in the state case, but he still faces 27 federal counts, including hate crime and firearm charges. For more, let's bring in ABC News' Morgan Norwood and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Brian, what goes into this decision of whether or not to seek the death penalty, and why seek it here but not at the state level?
Morning, Dan, or afternoon, sorry. Well, what goes into it is the actual charges themselves, and then also they look to the aggravating factors that they believe they can prove in a case to ultimately get them past that threshold of the death penalty. I'm thinking of the heinousness of the crime, the number of victims, the fact that a crime occurred while the murders were occurring as well as the preparation and the premeditation of the crime. These factors, I think, go into it. And in terms of answering the question why the death penalty at the federal level and not the state level, well, the state of New York doesn't have the death penalty, but the federal government does. And so that's why we're seeing different sentencing levels at different levels of criminal culpability.
Usual is it to seek the death penalty in a federal case?
It's not very unusual. We've seen it a number of times. However, I think it's more unusual on the back end as to whether or not it happens. We saw 13 federal executions near the end of former President Donald Trump's presidency. But before that, there was a 17-year hiatus. In fact, currently, there's a moratorium on the death penalty in the federal government through President Joe Biden. So really, when we talk about the potential for someone being executed, it's really about what future presidents may think about whether or not someone should be put to death.
Morgan, what have you heard from the families on this?
Well, Diane, I can say that this was a racially motivated attack. And so we know that the DOJ, the Justice Department, has faced growing pressure to send a clear and strong message about these types of cases. So I'd imagine for the family, I mean, look, they've had delays with this case before. I mean, the time that it's taken for the DOJ to decide, I've heard from family members say that this was agonizing for them. So for them, this is the first step as they continue the journey on closure and healing.
Brian, there's a federal hearing set for this afternoon. What do you expect to come out of that?
I think the announcement that they are seeking the death penalty, the justification for it as well, and there might be some negotiation as to when the next court date is, because as you've already told us, the shooter has already pled guilty in state court. One would assume that if he can avoid the death penalty through a plea negotiation, or maybe even plead guilty and do what we saw in Florida with the Florida school shooting where he ultimately got life in prison, this might be a situation where we avoid any litigation as to guilt or innocence and move towards sentencing where pleading guilty could give you a mitigating factor to help avoid the death penalty.
Morgan, how is the community coping with the tragedy and with the fact that this case is still ongoing?
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's incredibly tough for them, right? I mean, this is heartbreaking. It shattered this predominantly Black community here. And so they are on the journey for closure. They're on the journey for healing. And so that is what they're looking for. They're continuing to reel. And even this process alone is going to be critical as they continue to search for that. I will say that this shooting, brought up a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, a lot of outrage. So it's likely that we're still seeing that linger even as this process continues, Diane.
All right, Morgan Norwood, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.